An Iranian ballistic missile has just slammed into Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest American military installation in the Middle East. Not threatened, not warned about, not intercepted. Hit. The strike was confirmed within hours by Qatar's Ministry of Defense. According to officials, 2 Iranian ballistic missiles were launched at the base on the night of March 3rd. One was intercepted by air defenses. The other made it through. And it didn't land harmlessly in the desert. The missile struck a structure used to house secure U.S. military communications equipment. Meanwhile, the Pentagon said almost nothing for hours. That silence matters. More than 10,000 American troops are stationed at Al Udeid. Around 330 military aircraft operate from the base. This isn't just another overseas installation. It's the forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command, the nerve center of American air power across the Middle East, and Iran just managed to put a ballistic missile inside it. So far, no casualties have been confirmed. But that absence of casualties doesn't tell the full story, because what the Pentagon isn't saying publicly, what early damage assessments are quietly pointing toward, and what the next 72 hours could bring may matter far more than a single strike headline. To understand why this moment is so serious, we have to look at how we got here. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military campaign against Iran. The operation, codenamed Operation Epic Fury, targeted the country's leadership, security infrastructure, and nuclear program all at once. Within the first minute of the operation, precision strikes reportedly killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, ending a 35-year rule. The opening strike, described by analysts as a clinical decapitation attack, triggered the wider air offensive. 3 major nuclear sites, Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan, were hit. Iran's command structure was effectively shattered in a single night, but Iran didn't collapse. Iran retaliated. And what we're seeing now is very different from anything before. Back in 2020, when Iran fired missiles at Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq after the killing of Qasem Soleimani, the attack was carefully telegraphed. Warnings were sent, casualties were avoided. It was geopolitical theater. This time, it's not theater. At least 4 American service members have already been killed in this conflict. U.S. military bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, and the Way have suffered damage. Satellite imagery released by ABC News shows heavy impacts at the U.S. Fifth Fleet Naval Facility in Manama, Bahrain. And as of this recording, hundreds of Iranian drones are actively targeting locations across Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates simultaneously. Then came the moment that caught Washington completely off guard. Because the real story at Al Udeid is not just that a missile landed, it's where it landed. According to Qatar's defense ministry, Iran launched 2 ballistic missiles at Al Udeid on March 3rd. One was intercepted by Qatari air defenses. The second one broke through. It struck what defense officials describe as a communications dome, a highly secure structure housing encrypted command and control infrastructure used by the United States across the entire Middle East. Read that carefully. Iran didn't just target a runway. It didn't aim at parked aircraft. It targeted the communications brain of CENTCOM's forward headquarters. The New York Times reported that Iran has been systematically striking U.S. military communications infrastructure across multiple countries in the region. Analysts now believe this is part of a deliberate strategy, not random retaliation. A coordinated campaign designed to degrade America's ability to coordinate its own air war. But the timing of the Pentagon's response raised eyebrows. The damage was only acknowledged after Iran International first reported the strike, forcing officials to address it publicly. Then came the response from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth during a March 4th press conference. He confirmed that U.S. operations against Iran are now accelerating. His exact words: "We will begin expanding inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory." But when reporters asked directly about the Al Udeid strike, what was hit, what was damaged, Hegseth offered a surprisingly blunt answer. Iran, he said, is toast. That's the U.S. Defense Secretary describing a ballistic missile strike on America's largest Middle East base with a single word. Supporters say that's confidence. The numbers tell a slightly different story. According to Stars and Stripes, as of March 1st, Qatari defenses had already intercepted 101 Iranian ballistic missiles, 39 drones, and 3 cruise missiles. That's an impressive interception rate. But impressive isn't perfect, and not perfect means some missiles still get through. To understand the weight of what just happened, you have to zoom out, because analysts covering this conflict keep pointing to one historical comparison, the Gulf War of 1991. But this time, the roles appear reversed. In 1991, the United States used the Persian Gulf as a launch platform to project overwhelming military power into Iraq. What Iran appears to be attempting now is the opposite. Instead of attacking American forces directly, Iran is targeting the infrastructure that allows those forces to operate in the first place. Ballistic missiles, drone swarms, communication disruptions. The goal isn't just retaliation, it's making the Gulf itself unsafe as a forward operating hub for U.S. power. Multiple Arab states hosting American forces, including Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the UAE, were hit in Iran's initial retaliation wave. Behind closed doors, the tension is rising. Reports indicate several Gulf governments are warning Washington that the conflict has crossed dangerous red lines. Some are furious that their territory has become a battlefield in a war they were not fully consulted on before it began. While headlines have focused on casualties, more than 1,000 Iranian deaths reported so far, the deeper story is what Iran is actually targeting: communications, coordination, infrastructure. Satellite imagery also shows something else, a noticeable reduction in U.S. aircraft at Al Udeid. Not because they were destroyed, because they were quietly repositioned. The Pentagon is pulling assets back, a clear signal that the region's air defense umbrella is being stress tested in real time. And not every test is passing. Which raises 2 serious questions. First, if Iran can temporarily disrupt U.S. command and control communications in the region, what does that mean for American air operations over Iran itself? Second, the White House has publicly suggested this war could last 4 weeks. We are now in week 2. What happens in weeks 3 and 4 if Iran's missile and drone strikes don't slow down, but accelerate? Because what we're witnessing right now is a real-time test of whether America's entire forward military posture in the Middle East can withstand the strategy Iran appears to be executing. And most Americans still don't fully understand the scale of what's unfolding. Let's pause for a moment and look at what we actually know. Iran launched ballistic missiles at the nerve center of U.S. Central Command's forward operations. 1 missile slipped through air defenses and struck the base. At the same time, Iran appears to be executing a coordinated campaign targeting American communications infrastructure across several countries.
And Gulf states hosting thousands of U.S. troops are privately warning Washington they were not fully prepared for the conflict now unfolding on their soil. But here's the detail that shifts the entire story. Al Udeid Air Base isn't just a place where aircraft park. It's the forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command, responsible for military operations across 21 countries stretching from Egypt to Kazakhstan.
The communications infrastructure housed there coordinates drone strikes, intelligence sharing, logistics networks, and real-time targeting data for U.S. military operations across the region. When Iran targeted that communications dome, it wasn't firing blindly at a base. It was firing at the nervous system of America's regional war effort. Pentagon officials eventually confirmed that the dome used for secure transmissions was struck, but only after the damage could no longer be ignored, and that delay speaks volumes. Governments tend to release bad news quickly when they want to control the narrative. They release it slowly when the situation is more serious than they're ready to admit. Meanwhile, reports indicate U.S. communications facilities across multiple sites in the Middle East have also been targeted. That suggests something larger: a doctrine, a strategy designed to impair America's ability to see, coordinate, and respond, not in some hypothetical future conflict, but in the middle of this one. Since the conflict began, the United States has reportedly struck more than 2,000 targets inside Iran. Iran's supreme leader is dead. Large portions of Iran's military leadership have been eliminated, and yet Iran continues launching ballistic missiles at the largest American military base in the region. That doesn't look like a country collapsing. It looks like a country that has decided it has nothing left to lose and is acting accordingly, which creates a growing contradiction. On one hand, officials insist the war will be short. 4 weeks, according to public estimates. On the other hand, the defense secretary is warning that operations will expand deeper into Iranian territory and that additional American casualties remain possible. Both statements cannot be true at the same time. Because a country that is toast does not penetrate the air defenses of CENTCOM's headquarters and hit its communications infrastructure, and a war that is supposedly limited does not involve expanding strikes deeper into enemy territory while missile attacks continue across the Gulf. So here's what it ultimately comes down to. The United States is now fighting a conflict where its largest regional military hub has been directly struck. Its communications infrastructure has been partially compromised across multiple locations. American service members have already been killed. And yet the public is being told the war will be over in a matter of weeks. History teaches a simple lesson. When governments must choose between managing the narrative and revealing the full reality, the narrative itself often exposes what's being withheld. The real question isn't whether the United States can win a war with Iran. The real question is whether the American public is being given an honest picture of what that victory would actually cost, and whether anyone in Washington fully anticipated what happens when Iran decides to fight back, not with symbolism, but with ballistic missiles aimed directly at the buildings where American commanders sit. Stay informed. Stay watchful.